This is the 2021 3M Open Data Dive Show. Just a couple of quick announcements or reminders for the introduction here before we get into the data. As always, all statistics are provided by FantasyNational.com. I stress it every episode, but can't do it enough. Invest in it. It's going to make you a much better DFS player. It's going to make you a much smarter sportsbook gambler. It's an amazing resource, so well worth the investment. The only other reminder I have: chat's always open. Interact. What do you want to know? Ask questions. Make fun of me. That's fine too, especially after this week's open betting card. It was atrocious. Thankfully, Seamus Power saved it. But with that, let's get into the data for the 3M Open. And we'll, as soon as I start working the mouse here and with my software, I'm going to start off with showing you the data model that I have kind of been tweaking with today while I reach for my Gatorade there. I've added percentages and tweaked and changed a few, subtracted and all that stuff. But this is roughly the metrics or the specific data points that I want to look at. I started using off the tee at around 10%. I decreased it to 5 because I've got driving distance in there as well. And driving distance is baked into off the tee as well as hitting fairways. But this course is generally pretty easy to hit fairways. So I wanted to focus more on the distance, hence I separated it out. Anyone who has followed me for a while now knows that I prefer iron players as opposed to putters. And I've got that set at 25%. It's certainly arguable that you could drop that and maybe add a metric or increase the percentages here, but I really prefer guys who are dialed in with their irons, especially this week when a common theme is going to be long iron approaches. So I really want to see who's dialed in with the long irons this week. Putting I normally don't like because it's a fickle statistic. It's very volatile. 1 week to the next, guy can light him up and then go ice cold. For example, at the Open Championship, Patrick Reed, normally a very good putter, just didn't putt well. And it happens. Those are, even for professionals, it's just a volatile statistic. So I don't like it too much. But it's inarguable at this course with off the tee and approach being so important that around the green plays no factor into this course at all. And I'm getting that as we looked at the initial research show, which if you haven't checked it out, if you're watching live, check it out after this show. If you're watching this after I've been live, pause this video, go and check it out, then come back. I'll still be here. But as we looked at last night in the initial research show, strokes gains approach is clearly the most important statistic to use in the what I'll call the headline or the overarching strokes gain numbers. Approach, putting, off the tee, those are generally your top three, and in that order. Some variation of where the charts lie. Sometimes putting's even, sometimes putting's more and whatnot, but very rarely do you see strokes gained around the green this little, or any statistic this little. So clearly around the green, your chipping, your sand saves, that's just not as important here for your top 10 finishers. So it's a factor that I'm not going to use very much, and perhaps that's wrong, but I'm giving you the reasoning why I'm ignoring it this week, and that's from this chart right here. But moving back to the data model that I've been kind of tweaking, so that's why I've got putting at 15% as opposed to a little bit lower and adjusting maybe some sand saves or around the green play. I've got all of the short game in putting. This is generally an easy course, so I want to see birdies or better. And that's been a common theme lately, especially with the John Deere Classic and the Rocket Mortgage have been easy courses. So, and you can certainly we'll dig into some data here shortly on easy courses, but in an overall scheme, birdies are better is a good indicator of who really attacks easy courses. I highlighted why we're using driving distance. The par fives here at TPC Twin Cities, you have to take advantage of. They're not necessarily eagleable, although one is. Certainly not to the effect that the Barbasol last week. I believe there was close to a 10% eagle rate on one of the par fives there. The highest eagle rate on this course, I believe, is about 3.3. So certainly, I mean, it lends itself to a few eagles, but it's not astronomical. But the 4 easiest holes on this course are all the par fives. So I really want to see who attacks par fives the best. Because if you're not going to score on the par fives, one of the par fives here, I believe it's the easiest par five, actually plays to a half a stroke under par. So if you're not birdieing that hole, you are losing strokes to the field. And that makes up 85% of the data model that I've put in here. And when we start going into specifics, all 3 of the par fives, because there's a par 71, all 3 of the par fives fall within this range, and more specifically, they are in between 590 and 600 yards. Certainly, during the course of the tournament, they'll add and subtract lengths, and some of them might stretch to a little bit beyond 600. But at the baseline level, they all fall between this range. So I do want to see, and I didn't put a lot of weight into it, but I do want to see who generally plays that length of par fives well. And plus, the majority of the approach shots at this course will come from these 2 ranges, from 175 to 200 and 200 plus. In the past, I have certainly added percentages to that to see who's been really dialed in from those ranges. Those data models were, I would say, mildly successful, so I'm going to try a little bit different. Not necessarily focus as much on the proximities, but I do want to see a little bit, so that's why I've only put them at 5% and really adjusted the numbers either in the overarching or overhead strokes gained, or again, perhaps because of this week, the par fives are so important, add those percentages in the par five and whatnot. So this is just to show you what the data model I have right now, and certainly I'll tweak it throughout the week and add percentages, drop percentages, maybe add a statistic here and there. And I always will do that at the beginning of the DFS Tactics show, which is on Wednesday nights, to any changes that I've made from the Data Dive show. But when we sort this based, again, on my custom stat model for the last 24 rounds, Louis Oosthuizen is number 1. And barring his Sunday, I'll say collapses in the majors, but, barring his Sunday play at the majors, he's been pretty locked in. I mean, you can see how well he has played. I mean, even in the last 5 tournaments, he hasn't done great off the tee, but he's traditionally been a above average player off the tee. There's a lot of green here, so I mean, you can just come down here and look at his results. I mean, a 3rd at the Open, a 2nd at the U.S. Open, a top 20 at the Memorial, a 2nd at the PGA, 8th at the Valspar, essentially a top 20. I mean, definitely a top 30 at the Masters. So he has been playing some very good golf. He doesn't play often, but he's been playing some very, very good golf. His off the tee numbers have been hit and miss lately, and it's partially due just to the difficulty of the course. Granted, this is relative to the field, but he is dialed in right now with his irons and his approach shots. I mean, absolutely locked in right now. And he's been putting daylights out too. I mean, look here at the U.S. Open. He gained 7 strokes on the greens. I mean, that's look in the rear view, laugh, and drive off numbers. I mean, that's, what is this, 4, 9, 14 straight tournaments of measured rounds. Now, Masters has propriety on their statistics. Sorry, right there. So the Masters in November, Masters in April, and then the Open has propriety on their statistics as well. But of the last 14 measured rounds of strokes gained putting, he's gained. And it's been at least a half a stroke, which is down here, all the way up to 7. So he's been putting the daylights out. I imagine this will continue as we're on bent greens again this week. Traditionally not his best, but again, he's riding a hot putter right now. So there's no reason, until he shows you that he cools off, there's no reason not to believe in the hot putter. So Louis, number 1, Cam Davis off his win at the Rocket Mortgage is second. Now, he didn't play great at the John Deere. Still made the cut, but a very middling finish. He's never been good around the green, but as we saw from the chart in the course breakdown, around the green is just not going to play much of a factor this week. So I like Cam Davis quite a bit. He's been riding a hot putter as well. Generally speaking, his driver is his big weapon. He's very long off the tee, and we'll see that in the driving distance. But he's actually not driven the ball very well lately. The one time he did, he won the tournament. And that's due to a very, very good iron week. And his irons can be hit and miss. Certainly, I mean, at the Memorial, the tournament before, it was a month prior to his win, but the tournament before, he was atrocious with the irons. So he's a bit been hit and miss, but when he gets dialed in with his irons, he generally gets dialed in a big way. And if the putter comes with him, you get some pretty good results. Hence the win at the Rocket Mortgage. So I like Cam Davis this week. A little bit more lukewarm than I was at the Rocket Mortgage, but certainly I like Cam Davis. Hank Libbiota he's playing very good golf, and he is riding probably the hottest putter on the PGA Tour right now. I know it says he's 4th there and Louis first, but man, Libbiota is just scorching hot with his putter. And bent greens are his favorite. Look here, the last 5 tournaments, almost 5 strokes gained per tournament. At the John Deere, he gains 5. At the Rocket Mortgage, he gains 6. Basically 6 at the Travelers. That's fueling his 3 straight top 10s. You gain 4, you gain 3. Now, he was really bad at the Wells Fargo, but still made the cut thanks to being locked in with his irons. So Libbiota's playing some really good golf, and traditionally, he's been a good putter. Over the last 20 tournaments, he's at least been above average. So I'm willing to, even though fully admitting that putting is a fickle statistic, he has been, I was going to say ice hot. That doesn't even make any sense. He's just been scorching with this putter. And until he has a couple of weeks in a row where it's this bad, I'm willing to believe that he's still riding a hot putter, and maybe he's figured something out. And that he has shown something that will, reverse this, overall trend of being a slightly negative putter. So Hank Libbiota's just riding a hot putter. DJ, no explanation needed. He's 4th. Patton Kazire, 5th. Woodland, 6th. McNeely, Pat Perez, Luke List, and Johnny Vegas round out the top 10 on my model, with Cameron Tringali, Bradley, Sink, Sergio, Adam Shank, who's played 2 straight tournaments pretty darn well, Stallings, Watson, Reed, Charles, and MJ Defoe. I think I'm saying that right. Defoe or Dafu. Rounding out the top 20. I mentioned last night in the initial research show that I wanted to get the exact yardage. So I did bring up the Pro Visualizer, and even though we didn't do this in the initial research show, I gave it an eyeball on the breakdown. So the course plays to 7,362 yards. So just under that 7,400 metric or cutoff that Fantasy National uses right here. So you have the 72 to 7400 and the over 74. I'm actually probably going to use the over 7400 because as I was digging, and this is admittedly more of an initial research nugget or goes into that show, and I'm going to probably start trying to do this for that show. But I stumbled across this, which is a PDF. Now, granted, yes, it is for 2019, which was the introduction of this tournament. Again, we're at TPC Twin Cities, which is in Blaine, Minnesota. Par 71. Yardage here says 7,400, 41 yards, so just over the 7,400. Pro Visualizer has it set up at just under 7,400, so it's pretty darn close to the 7,400. I'm probably going to use over 7,400 in my models just because it's so close to being 7,400. And then they're gonna try to run again in 2019. They ran the stimp at 12. That's pretty fast. It's not the fastest, but it's pretty fast. But I was more intrigued by seeing this. The average green size, 6,500 square feet. I'll tell you now that is bigger than the average tour as far as greens. I believe the average green size is 6,000 square feet. But this is another reason why I want to start trying to find this for tournaments moving forward, especially on the initial research show. Because if you know the green size, or at least the average green size at a course, I'm going to exit out of this, it can help to explain why charts look like this, where your green and regulation percentage is higher. Sometimes you might think that the course is easier, so guys are just dialed in, or guys are generally hitting it further. That way, the greens, become easier to hit, or maybe the course is just short, and the greens are getting hit at a more regular percentage. You see here that guys do hit it further at this course, but 7,400 is not a short course by any means. So seeing the green size definitely helps explain why this green and regulation percentage is higher than the average tour event. And then again, just speaking to why I was valuing the ranges that I was on the approach shots, that comes from this graphic here. And again, we covered this in the initial research show, but I mentioned last night in the research show that I wanted to get the exact yardage nailed down when we start talking about the data here for tonight's show. And then as I said, I stumbled across that, which was very, very interesting. So it helped to explain a couple of narratives for the charts that I was just showing you. But to actually, let's actually dig into the data for what this show's for. I am surprised to see that. I'm surprised that Libbiota is up here third. I mean, yes, he's riding a very hot putter because he's not the longest on tour. He's not the shortest either, but he's not known for being the longest on tour. I mean, he doesn't play the par fives particularly great. He's not amazing with his long irons, but here he is up third in the rankings. Someone else that I'm kind of surprised sitting here ninth is Luke List. And you see here, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 of the 9 statistics that I have, I would almost consider elite. He's 9th in off the tee, he's 11th in approach, 25th in birdies or better, 3rd, 17th, 5th, 11th, 18th. The only thing that's holding him back, and it always will for me, is Luke List, is his putting. It is avert your eyes, pray to God he keeps it on the green bad. He's losing, and bent being his worst putting surface, he loses a half a stroke per round on bent greens. That is bad. That is bad. Now, I'm not saying that I would do any better. I'm an amateur. That's why I'm talking about it, not playing it. But I mean, yes, putting can be a fickle statistic, but he has proven over his career he just can't putt. He just flat out can't putt. So I tend to more believe in long-term statistics if you continually show it, like this, like Luke List can't putt, Ben On just can't putt. Now certainly he has good putting weeks, but if he has a good putting week and the rest of his game it doesn't show up, I mean, it doesn't really matter. And that's when you catch him on a good week. Like look here at the Wells Fargo, his sixth. I mean, he did gain a lot, and that's when he had the rest of his game showing up. John Deere came fourth and was basically average with the field. I mean, he was slightly above. His putting holds him back. That's the reason why he has not been a winner on the PGA Tour yet. If he ever figures out the flat stick, I mean, look here, everything. I mean, tee to green was great. Off the tee was great. His approach, 2 strokes there. He was, exactly average to the field around the green. He loses 5.5 strokes. He misses the cut, and he played outstanding that week. Just couldn't make a fucking putt. I mean, that's not the only time he's done it either. So I'm surprised to see Luke List that high, considering I put putting at 15%. But, I mean, when you have elite statistics like this, sometimes it's worth the bet to see if you can catch a guy when he catches fire with the putter. Colin Morika is probably the best example of this. Now, he's an elite player. I'm not taking anything away from Colin Morika. Undoubtedly the best iron player in the world. But he's traditionally not a good putter. So when he does putt well, he's going to win. Or he's going to be in contention, the top 5 easily, just because his iron play. So Luke List is a lot like that, just not to the skill level of Colin Morikawa. If he keeps his irons and keeps the driving distance like he has, I mean, he's third in this field in driving distance. But if he can actually catch a week where all of that is relative to his baseline and make some putts, he's going to be dangerous. This statistic, his putter, is what holds him back, and that's why I'm always going to be gun shy on Luke List. Because he could play great, just not make a putt, and continually come in 7th or 4th or whatever. I mean, he's always threatens, but he's never come through. So that is a long way around saying I'm off the Luke List, but it's certainly worth a bet if you think you can catch him on a hot week, a good putting week. Somebody else that I want to highlight here, Adam Shank, which a lot of people don't know, at least the casual tour fan. He's been playing some really good golf lately, a lot like Cam Davis. He's not good around the green. I don't think that's going to come into play this week. Adam Shank's somebody I really like. Came tied for 15th at the Barbasol. Yes, it was an alternate field event, but played pretty darn well. 4th at the John Deere. A middling performance at the Rocket Mortgage, but didn't play awful. And then, a few middling performances here in May and June. He had a top 20 earlier at the Valspar, a top 25 at the Heritage. Now, granted, these two are pretty short courses, I believe. Let me check the Valspar. Yeah, 72 to 7,400. I think it's closer to the 7,200 range than 74. So, yes, those are generally shorter courses, but the guy's been playing. He's got some very good recent form. I'm talking not even 24 rounds. Like when you search for past 12 or past 8, Adam Shank's going to pop on these models. So he's somebody else that I'm intrigued by this week. And speaking of intrigued, let me pull up the odds here from DraftKings Sportsbook. So your favorite is Dustin Johnson, probably no surprise, at 7-1. Louis at 11. Tony Finau at 14. Patrick Reed at 16. Those are your 4, we'll say, big guns. And I consider a big gun at 20-1 or less. You could argue whatever number you say is a big gun, but that's what I say. Then your top tier or your solid guys. You've got Tringali at 25, Bobby Mack at 28, Matthew Wolf at 30, Bubba at 35, Grillo at 35, Sergio at 35, Cam Davis and Keegan Bradley at 40, and then a whole slew of people at 50. Ricky, Maverick McNeely, Hank Libbiota, Lucas Herbert, and Gary Woodland are all 50. Excuse me, sorry, I'm taking a lot of swigs of that Gatorade. Had golf league again tonight. I don't want to go through the entirety of the sportsbook odds. Again, if you jump in and chat, if you want to know somebody's specific odds, I'll be more than happy to share them. I just don't want to go through it and take up the whole show with that. But I mean, with Louis being my number one is 11-1, that's just too short of a price for me. Cam Davis, 40-1, certainly nothing. It's nothing to sneeze at. I was certainly on him at the Rocket Mortgage when he won. I really like Libbiota, and he's sitting at 50. If he's third in my model, 50-1, to me that's defined as value. So there's some value to be had here. Let's see, Dylan Fratelli coming off an extremely strong Open. He is sitting at 60-1. He does not rate well out in my model, though. Certainly long off the tee, but he has not played particularly well in any other of these categories. I wonder what's going on with Fratelli, because he had a very good Open. Well, that's why. So, clearly, great Open Championship, top 5, but he had missed the cut at John Deere, Rocket Mortgage, the Travelers, and then a slew of them, again, down here, intermingled with some very mediocre performances. So, is this an outlier? Maybe. It certainly looks like it's an outlier, but it's the Open Championship. There's something there. Now he is an international, so there's something to be said about that. And off the tee being his main portion of his game, well, off the tee and around the green, with the winds having been so calm over in Sandwich, England this weekend, it certainly played to Fratelli's strengths, that's for sure. So I don't want to take anything away from him. Top 5, I think some circumstances lined up for him because he hasn't been playing very well of late. So 60-1, I think it might have to be 160-1 for me to consider Dylan Fratelli. Now, having said this, you should absolutely go bet him because he's going to win. Just by me saying that, because that's the way things go. But what I kind of want to look at here in my data model here, sorry, I keep looking up just to make sure I haven't, I had a software update that I needed, and I need to make sure that we're still live and going and all that. I want to see who plays easy courses very well. Where is it? Is it up here? Yeah, scoring relative to par, easy. I'm still going to use the same data model that I have. And DJ actually moves to number 1. Louis falls quite a bit on easy courses at least with my data models here, or the percentages that I'm using. Guys, again, if you want to know a particular statistic that maybe that I don't have highlighted here, or if you even want to know what the statistics are, let me know. Is that a video that you want to see to show what statistics are available at Fantasy National, or what, just hop in, chat, or shoot a comment down below. Because there is a lot of statistics available that you might want to see. And this is why I preach and I preach and I preach. Fantasy National is absolutely worth the investment. If you're going to get into fantasy golf, or you're going to bet golf at sports books, Fantasy National is going to make you a whole lot better at both of them. But getting back to the 3M here, with these metrics on easy courses, again, adding that filter there, or adding that qualifier. DJ's number 1, Matthew Wolff, which was your 2019 3M Open champion. He rises to second. You got Tringali, Cameron Davis, Bubba, Sepp Straka, Patton Gazire, Charles Schwartzel, JT Poston coming off the playoff loss to Seamus Power last week at the Barbasol, and then Tony Finau. Round out your top 10. You got McNeely and List, Sergio stalking behind the top 10, who were really, really high in the base model. Somebody else that I really have been impressed with lately, and a shout out to one of my subscribers, Brandon Barger. He's tuned me in on the Mito Pereira, and Mito's been playing pretty darn good. Generally not been the closer he gets, the worse he gets, generally speaking, because he normally plays on the Korn Ferry Tour, and when he's come up to the PGA Tour, he hasn't played awful. He did miss the cut at the Rocket Mortgage, but the week before the Open, which again the John Deere Classic wasn't quite an alternate field event, but it felt like it, just because it was the week before the Open, so a lot of the bigger name players were over in Scotland playing the Scottish Open, getting used to links golf. So it was kind of an alternate, a step up above a alternate field event. He played pretty darn well. Again, his baseline of around the green and putting wasn't great, but he still made the cut, top 35 for a Korn Ferry guy. That's not terrible. And then, this past week at the Barbasol, which is a true alternate field event, sure, but I mean he fifth, and he actually played well around the green. It's troubling to see the putting. I mean, the putting was better. If this were reversed and say -0.2 in the around the green and positive putting, I'd be a lot more on him this week. I just seeing how. I mean, he's shown consistently that he's not a good putter, and we don't have the Korn Ferry statistics down here. We just get the total strokes gained. But I mean, he's been in pretty good form on the Korn Ferry Tour. A 9th, a 2nd, a top 30, a top 20. Even last year at the Korn Ferry Championship in August. Now that's almost a year out. I mean, he was positive. I'm assuming tied for 36. I mean, that's not nothing to sneeze at. He won last year on the Korn Ferry Tour, so he can win. That's a big thing whenever somebody from the Korn Ferry Tour comes up to the PGA Tour. Are they getting promoted just because they played a lot and played pretty well and accumulated the points, or did they show that they can win? They can close out a tournament, and clearly Mito has shown he can close out a tournament, at least on the Korn Ferry level. The good thing is we're not on POA. We're on Bent. I mean, he's traditionally not a good putter anyway, but Mito's somebody, especially in the DFS tactics, which in the DFS scene, which we'll cover Wednesday, is somebody certainly at his price point that I would be very interested in. Very interested in. And he's lurking just, he's 18th in the full model here with an easy course when you filter easy courses. Let's look at some bent green putting statistics and see who's been putting the best lately on bent greens in the field. So number 1, Cameron Tringali, Brendan Todd, Christopher Ventura, Patton Gazire, and Adam Shank again. So Shank's popped a couple of times here on these models. Tringali as well. Adam Shank, number 5. So they're your top 5 strokes putting by strokes gained on bent greens. Then you have Merritt, Wagner, Howell, Brian Stewart, Michael Gligic. I think I'm saying that right. I heard it on the Barbasol broadcast, and now I've forgotten it. I think it's Gligic, Canadian. And then Pat Perez, Aaron Baddeley, Cameron Davis again, Brent Snedeker, and Lucas Herbert stalking outside the top 10. Libbiota there as well. Pretty good on bent. So I always like to highlight bent greens. And again, this is the last 24 rounds. Putting, especially with a surface as common as bent, I mean, I am comfortable going 36 or even 50 rounds on data that is more common. Or peat dye courses, I'm more likely to add rounds to it, just because there's so many peat dye courses that are used on the PGA Tour. But if we go strokes gained putting in the last 50 rounds, it's a lot of the same names, but you do get some movement. So Brendan Todd moves to number 1, Denny McCarthy, Putnam, Bo Hostler, Kazire, Snedeker moves up, Reed moves up, Pat Perez, Johnson Wagner, and Troy Merritt are your top 10 over the last 50 rounds. So more of a baseline, more of a longer term, who's traditionally putted well on bent greens. Now, if we're looking at just who's on fire recently on bent greens with the flat stick, I'll do 8 rounds. You can do 4. You can do 12. That's another. I mean, again, I can't stress enough why Fantasy National is great. But the last 8 rounds on bent greens, Hunter Mahan is number 1. Looks like he can't do a damn thing else, but he putts well on bent greens. So if you want to use that narrative, by all means. I'm not. Brian Stewart, Hank Libbiota, Shank, Tringali, Pat Perez, Troy Merritt, Lucas Herbert, Adam Hadwin, who's traditionally just a very good putter anyway, Martin Traynor, your top 10 in the last 8 rounds on bent greens. So that's why I don't like to narrow down the sample size too much, because you get crazy shit like Hunter Mahan at the top of it. The reason I say, I'll just let you all have a gander at why that's crazy shit. I hope I don't have to explain it very much. There's a lot of MCs there. But good for you, Hunter Mahan. You're in the field, and you've got a statistic going for you. There you go, Hunter Mahan. I'm going to bring this back to the last 24 rounds. I just wanted to... It's always good to see who's putting well on the surface type. We look at the historic conditions. Generally, they've been fast, and certainly in 2019, they set it at 12. Don't know what they were in 2020. I don't know what they're going to be this year. It's probably safe to assume they're fast, but I don't want to make that assumption and then turn out to be really, really slow, because that can really throw your data off. The next thing I want to look at. I got lost in a train of thought. I want to make sure I mention, even though we didn't go through the Pro Visualizer last night in the research show, because this is in Minnesota, land of thousand lakes and all that stuff, water comes into play on about, I think, 12 or 13 holes. And if you were an amateur, it'd come into play on a whole lot more. Now, certainly, if you get very, very wayward, there's water on holes. Say like on hole 8, I think there's water left on hole 8 that really shouldn't come into play, but it's in play on hole number 9 because it's right next to the fairway on the right side on number 9. Now, certainly, if you go very, very wayward on 8, go left, sure, you can find that water. Generally not going to be in play on that hole unless you're me and you're just hitting the ball all over the place. But legitimately, I believe water comes into play on about 12 or 13 holes. So that's something else to factor in. I haven't seen a way to do that on Fantasy National. I think it's more so you'd have to really, really narrow in on similar style courses. And I haven't been able to do that very well. Just pure transparency there. Something I certainly need to get better at is correlating courses. But coming back to this model, I do want to see by the way, this is an Arnold Palmer design, so we don't use, or we don't have the architect filter, which can be very, very useful at times. I told you I'm going to use the over 7400. I know technically it's in this range. I'm going to use the over 7400 because it's so close. With the same percentages that I have, I'm using at least right now. DJ again is your number 1 on long courses. Luke List rises to number 2, and that's thanks to this 5th in driving distance. He actually does gain birdies at a very good rate. Birdies are better. He's supposedly been playing or putting well on long courses. So take that for what you will, because traditionally he's just not a good putter. But again, he's been dialed in with his irons. Sergio is now 3rd on long courses. Pat Desire, Gary Woodland, Lonto Griffin, Bramlett, Finau, Tringali, and Grillo are your top 10 in the strokes in this model on long courses. Now, if you want to compare that to just overall strokes gained total, which I think is a good thing to do, just to make sure your data model isn't completely out of line. Remember, we still have the over 7,400 filter on, but on a pure strokes gained total level, Grillo's number 1. I believe he's 10 on mine. DJ 2nd, Patrick Reed 3rd, Sergio 4, Luke List 5, Vegas is 6, Bryce Garnett, that's a name, huh? Bryce Garnett 7th, Bramlett 8th, Louis and Cameron Percy are your top 10 on long courses. I do want to see on easy. Let's do the same thing for easy courses here, just to kind of get a feel for how that went. And well, I see a lot of 1s next to DJ. It makes a lot of sense. He's the best player in the field. DJ, Pat Desire, Vegas, JT Poston, Cameron Davis, Bubba Watson, Tringali, Sink, Sloan, and Maverick Manili are your top 10 on easy courses. Let's see. Dig into some more data here with some recent results. Took a little bit of a look at this last night, mainly on the tournament history side. I think that's probably going to be a little better. We'll dig into this a little bit. Because I know there's been a few withdrawals already. Seamus Power, your champion at the Barbasol, he is withdrawn. I don't know, is the defending champion still playing? Michael Thompson. Yep, he's still here because he's your defending champion. So the guys that have played this course very well: Matthew Wolff, who won in 2019, Tony Finau, Charles Howes played this well, Tringali played it well, Werenski played it well, which isn't to say it's everything, because Werenski had played the Barbasol very, very well in the 2 iterations of the Barbasol, and since it's moved to Nicholasville, Kentucky. And then he missed the cut last week. So it's not everything. But it's certainly something to look at, just to see if a guy, plays extremely well, like Matthew Wolff, something just clicks for him at the course, or the inverse, if you just don't play this course very well at all. And there's a common theme here. These guys just generally aren't very good. But Martin Traynor, Chesson Hadley, Ted Potter have missed the cut both times. Dominic Mazzelli has missed the cut both times. There's our boy Hunter Mahan, the putter. He's missed the cut both times. So it's certainly it's not nothing to look at past performance on the course. But I wouldn't put all of the stock into it either. It's just to give you a good gauge, a good idea of who has played well at the course in the past, who's comfortable on the course. Let's see if we can actually do some course correlating here on the fly, I'll say. Again, I'm going to use this metric, and it can be argued if you should or not. Let's do the over 7,400. I'm going to set fast greens because it was in 2019, and I'm pretty sure it's going to play pretty fast. It's bent, and I'm going to leave the scoring relative to par unchecked for now. So you have Congressional, which was the site of the Workday WGC this year. You've got Crooked Stick and Quail Hollow. And Quail Hollow is... Oh, which one is that? Now I'm going to have to go look. Yep, sorry. Course breakdown. I can change the course to Quail Hollow. Give me one moment. I can do that. So it did host a PGA. What tournament is this? I should know this, and I'm not. And please, this is another reason why I want you to jump in chat and all that stuff. You'd save a lot of time and save me from the embarrassment of knowing what this is. I, for the life of me, don't know which tournament this is. And I'm not about to go fumbling through it. But those are the correlated courses, at least by those filters. Bent greens, fast, that are over 7,400 yards. Those are the courses that correlate based on those filters. I'm actually going to take this fast green speed off. So just bent green courses that are over 7,400 yards. You have Augusta, which I wouldn't consider this a very good comp. Golf Club of Houston. Interesting. Medina. There's Quail Hollow. TPC San Antonio. Interesting. There's Twin Cities. Valhalla. Whistling Straits. Let's add Easy. I wonder if Easy still qualifies TPC Twin Cities. It does. Okay. So there you go. You've added the golf club at Dove Mountain, Medina, Crooked Stick, Augusta. So, again, why Augusta plays easy to par, I don't know. I don't think I would agree with that one. But, so that gives you an idea of the correlated courses. I would certainly, if you know off the top of your head courses with a lot of water, I would certainly add those. Courses with a lot of water of the length. Something that comes to mind is PGA National out west. Now, granted, it is not the same part of the country, but that is another course that is long and has water come into play on quite a few holes. So that's something to look at on a correlated course perspective. Not using my model. Let's go by straight Fantasy National, no filters, no anything. Let's just see who's better at birdies or better, since you have to attack this course. It's a generally easy course. You got Bubba first, Patton Kazire, DJ Satoshi Kodaira, Hank Libbiota, Pat Perez, McNeely, Shank, Davis, and Sergio are your top 10. With Shank popping in so many of these models, where is he sitting in on the betting board? My goodness, I'm still scrolling. I'm liking this. Shank's 100 to 1. Huh. Shit, I think I just talked myself into a bet. But he's been popping on a lot of these models. So I like Shank quite a bit. McNeely's been popping as well. He's a lot lower odds. Yeah, we mentioned him earlier. He's right on the edge. He's 50. I do like Libbiota at 50 as well. So there's certainly some value to be had here, especially with DJ being the overwhelming, public favorite, and deservedly so at 7-1, Louis at 11. People love Tony Finau, and I'm one of them. I think he'll eventually win a non-alternate field event. For those of that don't know, he won the Puerto Rico Open. I think it's been 2 or 3 years now, and he's a solid player. Just hasn't won since then. He's always bet down just because he's just a solid player. Patrick Reed at 16. Let's see if any of the what I'll call bombs, 150 or more, that kind of stand out. Kodaira's popped in a couple of models. Sepp Straka was up there on one. Roger Sloan was in one. He's at 180. Yeah, not a lot. Not a lot in the quote bomb category, I don't think. But certainly in that middling tier from say 50 to 100. Again, 100. I like Adam Shank. Pat Perez has been popping in all of these models too. He's 100 to 1. Well, how's Pat Perez done lately? He's generally not been good off the tee, but that's par for the course for Pat Perez. He missed the cut of the John Deere, but he was top 15 at the Rocket Mortgage. But I am hesitant to put a lot of stock into that only because of this. Now, traditionally, sorry, highlighted it all. Traditionally, he has been a good putter. Taking nothing away from that. I'm more willing to believe in the green statistics for putting since he's shown it. But not 9 strokes or 8.5 strokes putting. I mean, he was bad in every other facet of his game that week. He gained 9 strokes, but he saved his ass on the greens and putted his way to a top 15 because nothing else was good at all. Now, at the Palmetto, he did putt fairly well, but he was in fuego with his irons and led to a top 10. Travelers, he didn't play well, so he's had some middling performances. And a top 10, I mean, I would consider this a very legitimate top 10 because he was great all around. I think that's a misnomer for the way he played, just because he didn't play well. He just put the lights out that week. So, if you're asking me who I'd be more confident in winning 100 on a 100 to 1 bet, it's Adam Shank, just by the numbers. But Pat Perez has won before. He's won on the PGA Tour quite a bit. I mean, there was a year there, yeah. So in the 2017-18 year, I mean, he won the CIMB. I mean, he's got a lot of top 10s. He's got a lot of top finishes. So he's at least proven he can win on the PGA Tour. Adam Shank hasn't. But by the numbers, I would go with Adam Shank on the 100 to 1s. Your defending champion, by the way, Michael Thompson, is 100 to 1 as well. Let's look at Michael. Well, this is based on its strokes gained. Let's look at par fives, since they're so crucial on this course. Just who plays the par fives really, really well the last 24 rounds. You got Lucas Herbert. Let me make sure. Yep, no filters are added. Lucas Herbert, Vincent Whaley, Pat Perez again, Bubba, DJ, Kevin Tway, Teeter, Griffin, Gary Woodland, and Johnson Wagner are your top 10 strokes gained on par fives. And if we narrow it down to the exact range that all three of the par fives are, Lucas Herbert still number 1, Sepp Straka, Cameron Tringale, Cam Davis, Vincent Whaley, Luke List, Perez, Villegas, Hagee, and Bramlett. So something I like to see here is consistency with strokes gained par 5 and the range that we're looking at. So clearly Lucas Herbert is the guy for par 5s this week, as he's first in strokes gained and first on the distance. Vincent Whaley, 2nd overall, 5th at the distance. Pat Perez, 3rd overall, 7th at the distance. Bubba Watson, DJ, 4th and 5th, tied for 11th at the distance. So it's good to make sure that, like this overall number isn't coming from, a specific range and they're shit at all the other ranges. So good to look at that. Lucas Herbert, what's his odds, since he's been popping in some of these models as well. Oh, we talked about him earlier. He's on the 50 to 1 cut. I'll say cut line that I talked about. I think the last couple of things I want to look at, didn't mean to hit that. Let's look at the proximities. 175 to 200 and 200 plus for the last 24 rounds. And I'm just going to sort by this one and see who is good across both. So you got Doug Gim, 1st and 13th. Cameron Champ, 3rd and 21st. That's an outlier because everything else, like he's 105th in proximity total, but he's 3rd and 21st at these two ranges. If if you want to buy into that, great. But generally, he's not a very good iron player at all. Let's see. Hadwin's 4th and then 100th. You got Kyle Stanley, 5th and 15th. Davis, 6th and 22nd. Keegan, 8th and 34th. Luke List, 11th and 18th. That's interesting. Again, his putter just scares me. Neesmith has always been a good iron player, 20th and 10th. He just can't do much of else. He's the inverse. He's the opposite of Luke List. Approaches well. I guess he's not too different from Luke List. Luke List is actually just better off the tee. I just wish Neesmith was better at stuff because he just hits his iron so well because he pops high on a lot of my models and I have to bring myself down because I rate approach so highly and that's his best statistic, but he's pretty fuck all at everything else, to be honest. Griot, Sam Ryder, 28 and 30. Sam Ryder had a very good Barbasol as well. Third or tied for third. You get him off Poa Greens, which, spoiler, we're on bent. He doesn't putt very, too bad. So, very interesting. I mean, all of this red kind of scares me, but if you're looking for most recent form, hey, third at the Barbasol. I meant to do this before I came to the proximity. Let's look at par 5s on easy courses. I kind of wanted to do that just to make sure it's not a big overwhelming difference. Par 5s on easy courses: Patrick Reed, McNeely, Davis, Sergio, Tringali, Keziah Schwartzel, Grayson Murray is a name I haven't heard in a long time, Joseph Brainlett, Denny McCarthy. And then of the range, you got Patrick Reed 1st and 4th, McNeely 1st and 3rd, Davis 3rd and 12th, Garcia 4th and 9th, Tringali 5th and 4th, Schwartzel 7th and 6th. So yeah, this top 10 guys, pretty darn good overall, and at the range of these par 5s on easy courses. So I believe it was Lucas Herbert that was number 1. Where does he fall to when you filter on? Yeah, he falls all the way to 114th. Now, that's only one round. So again, make sure you know what you're looking at with your data. It'd be easy to say, well, he just doesn't play easy courses very well or easy par 5s very well because he went from 1st to 114th. You also have to realize you're looking at one round. So sample size there is nothing. And I would attribute that completely to small sample size. Again, I'm going to kind of wrap it up there. I might highlight a few things here as I click through. But guys, again, before I hop off here in the chat, what do you want to see? Is there anything in particular that that I've covered a little bit, but you want more in depth, or maybe some statistics that you might want to see for this week? Let me know. I touched on a few of the guys that I think might be some values here. Luke List, if you want to think his putter will come around for this week, he's at 65 to 1. I mean, he's popped on almost all of the models except for the putting. 129th out of 156. Doesn't take a mathematician or a statistics junkie to tell you that's not good. But he's at 65 to 1 if you want to believe in the irons and the driver, and maybe he'll make putts this week, or he'll at least putt with his eyes open, because those are putting with your eyes closed bad. Stuart Sink 65. Kyle Stanley popped on the approaches. He's at 70 to 1. Again, I like Mito Pereira. He's at 70. I really like Adam Shank at 100. I really do. I like Adam Shank at 100 to 1 a lot. I think there was 150 that we talked about as well. Nope, 180 maybe. I don't know. The more I look at that Adam Shank number, I might just bet that right after the show. He's been. Oh, it was 50. It wasn't 150. It was 50 to 1. Hank Libbiota. I like that Shank number at 100 to 1. I like Libbiota at 50 to 1. I mean, the guy's just been playing well. Now, certainly, now that I'm going to bet him, he's just going to fall off a cliff. He might even withdraw because I just picked him. But I do like Libbiota at 50 to 1 quite a bit. And if we bring up my custom stat model real quick before we sign off here, I mean, Hank Libbiota I don't think has a red stat. I think they're all pretty green and high green. Green being good, red being bad. Load this up real quick before we log off here for the evening. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't play par fives of the length the best, but again, that's why I only put it at 5%. Strokes gained par 5, 15%. He's better. Doesn't play the par fives great just because he's not long off the tee, but hey, I mean, third in my model at 50 to 1. Adam Shank, where is he fit? Yeah, I mean, 15th on my model at 100 to 1. I mean, that's value for me. So I'll definitely be looking at those numbers quite heavily. But guys, thanks for tuning in. Smash that like button for all the data that we dig into. I love doing it. I love doing this. Statistics junkie, nerd, if you want to say it that way. Smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel. The support's always appreciated. Comment below. What do you all want to see? Sorry, I'm making sure I don't miss any comments. Comment below. Questions you have. Things that you want to look at. I want to know who you're looking at this week, or maybe someone you're fading this week, or what statistic I'm putting some emphasis in that you don't think will play this week, or do you think Around the Green will play like I don't? Just let me know. Reach out to me. Also, reach out to me. I want to hear about your successes. I admit, Seamus Power, I hit Cam Davis at the Rocket Mortgage, but my open betting card was absolute shit. So we can have a good laugh and all that about it, but I want to hear about your success stories. How much money did you make in DFS? Or was there a bet that you were particularly proud of? Reach out. I will absolutely shout you out in the intro. Absolutely. So until Wednesday night when we start looking at the DFS and the prices, may all your bets be profitable.